Clerk to open the meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals of Town of Canandaigua, June 21st, 2022 meeting. Our usual routine would be to do the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence at the beginning of the meeting for members of our armed forces. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just have a moment of silence. Thank you. Just a couple notes on the Zoom meeting procedure that we go through. We have a number of people who are attending by Zoom. They will keep their computers muted unless they have are asked to sign in. Sean will take care of that. And then they can comment and listen to their input. We have several new public hearings tonight. We'll hear each public hearing. Those asking for a variance will be presenting their case to the board. The board will then ask questions of the applicant. More questions can come from the applicant again. When all the information has been provided and questions answered, I will give a chance for the people in the audience to raise questions, including those by Zoom. And once all the information is gathered, I'll ask the applicants if they are comfortable with closing the public hearing. If they are, we'll vote on that, and then we have 62 days to come to a decision on the application. We generally will do the decision tonight, but it could be held off. Okay, first public hearing, Professional Engineering Group, Sheriff Scott Harder, Victor, New York, and James Sahi Design, Henrietta, Rochester, representing Shotland, Chosen Spot, LLC, Driving Park, Rochester, New York, property at 5272 Menteith Drive, requesting a 65-foot area variance for setback from a stream.
Good evening. That's correct.
Scott, let me know what plan you want me to put up.
Well, I guess perhaps sheet one.
Sheet one?
Sheet one of our drawing set. Sheet one is existing conditions, and it should show the 1.8 acre parcel as it currently is, and its distance from Canandaigua Lake, which is roughly 300 plus feet from the actual water line. It is referred to as the wood lot by the owners because it's all wooded, as you may have noticed if you went out there. Provides a secluded area which they wish to take advantage of, and as far as the views from the lakes are concerned, when the lake is concerned, there really is only an opening between two docks, approximately about here. The rest of the house to be proposed is shielded by not only vegetation but also the existing homes, and they have ownership of this property, and the property to the north as well. So once again, 1.845 acres. If you want to flip it, show it to the sheet two. The way we have it designed, the house as situated is shown to be 35 feet from the bottom of the bank of Menteith Creek to the closest building corner. Governing site constraints are the leach field, for example. That's situated in the northwest corner in compliance with the 100-foot separation distance imposed by the health department. The soils are good, they are generally porous, they are not wet. We found no water table evidence over there. I should mention, with respect to the meeting minutes that I got on the Environmental Conservation Board, there were comments regarding flooding that I'd like to speak to. And then Andrew, who's on Zoom, can speak to the vegetation-related comments if you're interested. I'm familiar with this property because I was the engineer who started out with a riser, Robert's property a little further to the east here. And when that property was proposed for development, the flood that occurred back in 2005, 2006, that affected all the properties around here was brought to my attention. And so I analyzed Mentith Creek then, I'm analyzing Mentith Creek now, both on this side of Westlake Road and also on the other side by the waterfall. And in doing so, we have done what's called a HEC-RAS analysis to estimate water surface profiles, water surface elevations during flood events. That's what has got us to the point of determining, with a margin of safety, the proposed finished floor elevation, and actually with respect to the flood issue that's been raised, and the fact that in 2005, 2006, the creek jumped its banks here. In meeting with Sean and Kevin Mulvaney, it was suggested by Kevin that we create a grading plan that allows for that potential to happen due to debris or whatever the case may be. It could be a large event storm, or it was suspected that that storm in 2005, 2006 may have happened because of debris. Nevertheless, to create a way for the water to go around the structure and a way for the structure to actually act as a buffer so that it can control the flows, the comment was made to not inundate the neighbors with floodwaters potentially under that unique condition. So what we've done, because we do have control of these properties, we can actually adjust the grading to achieve that goal, to deflect the water over onto the shallow properties and protect the neighbors as they're being asked to do. So that relates to the flooding issue. So interestingly enough, the structure at the 35-foot setback provides a benefit from a flooding perspective. It's also conducive to the privacy and the visual impact as viewed from the lake. It's very hidden. That's how we came to this particular location for the house. And then I guess I would ask you, Sean, if you could flip over to the landscaping plan and then perhaps have Andrew speak to that plan and the tree removal plan.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Go ahead, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. This is Andrew Murphy from RPK Landscape Architecture. So I'll speak for a couple minutes about our proposed planting plan in remediation of the site. I guess just on a tree removal note, we are removing a number of the trees from the site primarily to accommodate the building, grading, and earthwork. There are a number of trees also that are just in poor enough condition with split trunks and other issues that they present either hazards now or they will be hazards soon. So those were also noted for removal. Cottonwoods have also been selected as removals for the difficulties that they present. And lastly, there are several black walnuts that we are removing, again, mostly for earthwork and development purposes, but also to provide the opportunity down the road for the property owners to just have a wider landscape palette and avoid the allelopathic effects of black walnut. And we can choose from the black walnut tolerant list, and also that would provide the owners with choosing from other plant lists as well, including natives. So quick note on removal. In terms of what we're coming back with, we are trying to reinforce the creek's edge from an understory perspective, and with several canopy trees. A lot of standby natives. We have swamp white oak, we have sycamores, black tupelos, and in terms of the understory, we're looking at red buds and serviceberries. We're also trying to address the issue of views from the lake, with a lot of the trees you kind of see on the bottom edge or the southern edge of the property line. Again, more of the kind of mixed canopy and understory trees. So in a nutshell, the removals we're proposing are either for health reasons or development reasons. And then the things that we're coming back in with are actually, I want to say it's 100% native planting palette, and it's a mix of trees, shrubs, approximately 17 or 18 new trees.
Okay.
Did you want to show also the other plan that we have for the overall site? Is that in there too? Maybe the sheet prior to that, sheet 3 perhaps? See, that's the tree removal.
That's removal. This is the overall.
Okay. Did you want to speak to the tree removal, Andrew? How we came up with the tree removal plan?
Yeah, I could for a sec. I'm seeing right now the I think sheet 2. Can you guys see maybe it's just not loading on my end. Can you see the tree removal plan?
That'll be sheet 3.
There we go. Yeah, so high level view, the X's are straight removals. Again, really for the purposes of siting the house, locating the septic field, and allowing for efficient earthwork operations. There are 5 or 6 trees, mostly along the creek bed, that have been kind of with a dash circle. Those are trees that again, most of them were cottonwoods. There's a sugar maple, unfortunately, that has a split trunk, so we're proposing removal on that. But the dash circles refer to trees which we will remove almost entirely, with the exception of the stump, which we're proposing should remain for the temporary purposes of retaining and help retain that creek bank until new vegetation can become established. So X's are removals, circles are stumps, and the remainder are trees, existing site trees, which we're keeping either for beneficial, ecological purposes, the sugar maples, and then there are a couple of trees near Westlake Road that we're keeping for screening purposes, 24, 25, and 26.
Sean, I think we submitted a plan after this plan that had a second landscaping sheet that Andrew did, showing the overall site landscaping. I believe this was the
This
first,
is the 23rd, dated May 23rd.
the 23rd. Andrew, I recall that you did an overall landscaping plan for the entire site. Is that correct?
That's right. I believe that was sheet 4. It was the following sheet, sheet 4 or 5.
Yes.
But didn't we, does that include, yeah, I guess it does, okay. Okay. I was mistaken, sorry.
And there is additional, I mean, you can see the hatch, there's a hatch bubble all around the house, basically. We've simplified that for this process, but that's going to include a full native foundation plan, but it's all mostly shrubs and perennials, so we didn't want to kind of clutter the message here.
The other item that I would mention to the board regarding the location as it relates to the characteristics of the creek and flooding is my experience has been with the Riser Brovitz lot, with other Shotland properties, and with the property across the creek recently, with the the tool in addressing it was to not only provide positive drainage around the structures, but also elevate the structure as we've done to a very conservative elevation. I noticed when I visited the site and I looked at the Riser Brovitz house that has gone in, now the Brovitz house, that is quite elevated too, and we are proposing to do that as well here. Our finished floor elevation is roughly 4 foot above the lake's 100-year flood elevation, so we're roughly at 696. And also relative to the Brovitz home and I believe it's Sarah Linda Hooker's property across the way and the improvement she's making, those are all likewise within the same distance, plus or minus, as we're talking about with the proximity of this house residence.
I guess the issue before us really is only the variance.
Yeah.
So as much as I might have some real concerns about the tree removal and that type of thing, I'm not sure that is before us. We can make some comments on it, but we need to try to stick with the issue of the variance for the distance from the creek to the house. One thing that would just come to mind as I just look at the plan, you know, the house is very much oriented, the long axis being towards the creek. And it makes me wonder, could the house be rotated some to get some of it back further away from the creek without really changing the overall position too much? You know, our charge is to try to minimize the variance that's being requested or has to be granted. And it just occurred to me that that looks like that's oriented in such a way that it sort of pushes it out closer to the creek.
I spoke to Jim Fahey, the project architect, who couldn't be here tonight. And I believe that, in his opinion, he felt that the siting of the house was in the most optimal location for the use of the house. But relative to your question and your concern, I don't have a direct answer for that. I should also introduce Betsy Brugg, who's the project attorney who's with us tonight, who can speak to the.
I'm sure when to chime in here, but
yeah, that's a good question.
So I think the goal here is really to have the best possible project, and I appreciate that the board is charged with finding the minimum relief. But I do think the applicant has demonstrated that they meet the applicable standards, and I'll touch on them a little bit, because I think we are looking at, I know you know this, but I'm just gonna run through them. The benefit of the applicant weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. And I think the community does benefit when there is a good quality project and it's the best possible project. Having the best layout for the site is definitely what you need to do to be consistent with the character of the neighborhood and maintain the character of the neighborhood. You want a quality project to maintain the character of the neighborhood. So I think that's what is proposed here. The variance itself is specific to the distance from the creek, does not pose any adverse impact on the community or the neighbors. There are some issues that Scott did address, that everyone is aware of, the potential flooding issue. That's an issue that's come up on other projects. The property owner is responsible for that. They take responsibility for that, and they are aware of that. I did see a comment in there, I think, from Sean Jensen about some type of release for the town that requires
From
that.
Chris Jensen, yeah.
Yeah, so that obviously would be consistent with what's been done in the past. So there's no discernible detriment. There's no detriment from the granting of the variance. It is absolutely consistent with the character of the neighborhood. There are at least, I think, 3 other properties that have similar or even closer proximity to the creek.
Can you show those to us?
I think they're noted. Do you have drawings?
Could we pull up Encore or something?
You can pull up on Congress.
And the other question is, were any of those granted variances in the past?
I believe the one house was for short.
The Roberts
The
was.
Roberts house, that was not all that long ago, just a
Not the
couple
one
years
on
ago.
the south side, I don't think that's pre-existing and hasn't been
Just
changed
the
for
recent,
years.
it was relatively recent,
Yeah.
3-4 years ago. Yeah, there is, that one was granted more recently.
The Sandra Hooker one, Sarah Linda Hooker, that one is an existing
Right,
residence to my understanding.
Yes.
It's a rebuilding.
right. Within the footprint, though.
Yes.
So we'll see if we can get that.
Sean, how the Sarah Linda Hooker property was a pre-existing non-conforming?
It was, yes.
Yeah, so that didn't have to come to us.
Yeah,
We call it up on the screen. We should
Okay.
be able to see it.
I believe the variance was for.
Is there a certain address you want me to look up?
Excuse me,
I can give you the address.
Yes, Chris.
is this the same property that's appeared before this board and the planning board half a dozen times over the past 5 or 10 years? Or is this an adjacent property?
I believe it's an adjacent property, I think.
This is the first time this property's ever been
We've
proposed.
Okay.
reviewed the ones further east, several of the ones further east before.
but didn't they
Okay.
subdivide though? I thought they subdivided the parcels, or they had a.
I believe the Rhinestone property is the one that Chris is referring to, right?
That's the one John, that is.
That's the one
But I think that,
That one has come before us a number of times.
Yeah,
Right.
and I know the board has at least once, probably more than once, granted this same stream variance, but closer to the lake.
Well, I think though that they did some additional work to protect the creek, if I'm not mistaken,
I think you're absolutely correct, John.
when they came before us, so.
Here.
I've got some follow-up questions once we see this pertain to this kind of issue.
That's not an issue, if there's something that's been identified as, or, if there is some need to do some further protection of the creek, I'm not aware of that, but certainly that would be
Yep, thank you.
provided.
There we are.
5265, I believe it is.
This is right.
one closer to the lake, I know
This one.
That one,
we've seen a bunch of times.
Right. So in our neighborhood, there are multiple.
where is that in relationship to this property?
We are further to the
Downstream.
north. Our site is right there where the
This
cursor,
is the
This
property.
is 5265 men.
and we are 5272. So the yellow's 5265. Oh, just changed.
Right.
No,
We
yeah,
got it.
here is the parcel.
We are further up.
65 and
Further up.
67. Or-
Yeah, right, that was the one. There's task force.
Along 65, isn't there a wall along the creek, or is that on the other side of the creek?
There is a wall along their side of the creek.
Yeah.
And I guess what I've learned about Mentith Creek is that those walls are generally required, necessary if you don't have any vegetation. And when I first looked at that property several years ago, there was no vegetation there then, and there's none there
Why
now.
is it,
Do you see that target?
why is it?
Like a middle right hand corner, see the thing that's a target?
Yeah, this one,
Yeah, click on
is
that.
that why? Because before I didn't have to.
Yeah, it always does that to me too,
Okay.
it doesn't refresh your location.
Right, alright.
Right, you
so
can
this
see
is
on
the-
that, there is no vegetation
Yeah.
on that other one.
The
like
DEC
sand
who
pits.
monitor that creek quite closely, and I can tell you from personal experience across the road, presently, they prefer a vegetated solution to any type of structure.
But I can say the applicant will do whatever needs to be done to protect it.
That's
If
gonna
it's vegetation,
be
if it's
primarily
some
the
further-
planning board's
Right,
responsibility, but I must admit, I'm concerned about how much is coming out of there. tree
But
wise.
maybe, Chip, maybe a good idea would be to condition it on, stream mitigation measures as specified by the planning board or town engineer.
Yep,
I think that's fine. I don't think there's an interest in removing more trees than necessary.
No, and I think Andrew spoke to the reasoning behind removing the trees as he's done. And I know when I spoke with Andrew, he specifically did not want to remove any trees that would destabilize the tree banks.
I'm just curious, then what are the trees? We've got like 7 or 8 trees he's removing right along the, which were circled, where they're gonna leave the stumps to help protect the stream. Are those cottonwoods that they just want out of there, or what?
Let me have Andrew speak to the vegetation if he's still on.
Andrew, are you there?
Yep, so still here. So of the trees being taken down to stump along the stream, I know one of them is a sugar maple with a split trunk, and it's got some issues that really put a short lifespan on it. So structural issues with that one. The remainder, I believe, were all cottonwoods in kind of varying conditions. So yeah, so some of it along the stream is coming down to just condition of the tree, poor condition of the tree, not a real shelf life to it. And in other cases, just having cottonwoods on the property and being aggressive spreaders and kind of the nuisances the cottonwoods create.
Anyone else have any?
I guess I would be curious, Shauna, when you met with Kevin Mulvaney, what he might have said, because I was inspired at our training when he talked about this kind of thing. He said what was preferable and what is not really acceptable. And people get different grades all the way down the creek. It's truly amazing the variety. But do you recall anything that
I
Kevin said?
can't speak for his opinion on, obviously, on setbacks and that kind of thing, but I know, and Scott reiterated what we discussed, that his real concern was maintaining a proper and stable and riparian buffer along the stream, as well as we talked about getting it up above, obviously, significantly above flooding area, and also ways to redirect around the house. And I think, he did say, and I think one of the concerns with the ECD too is that, this site does take a lot of overflow from Menton. And that's just what it is. But I can't, again, I know we have some pretty strong opinions about setbacks from streams, but I can't say that.
His comment was regarding the site grading and to essentially give the water a place to go when that happens, should it happen again. And that was a real benchmark storm that came through, and I went through all the photographs and I evaluated the elevations which came into the stream model that we used. And yes, the site, if those circumstances were to arise again, that could happen, and it could flood the property. So if that happens, then we look at it and say, okay, where's the water going to go? How can we control the water? How can we deflect the water in a way that's not going to be problematic? And so in the revised drawing that I did recently, I mentioned that because we have control of the property to the east, we can do some sort of grading that includes that, so as to take advantage of other ownership and to achieve that goal. It's not often that I have that ability, but I do have it here.
I know that in the past, one of the neighbors, and it actually was, I think it was Sarah Linda, that had come in and expressing concerns because her house is where it is. And it was for the previous house that was redone, that she was worried about flooding. Do you guys have any idea of how that's going to impact the other side of?
Yes, I do. The stream model that we did basically shows that site, that area is higher in elevation than we are. So we are going to bear the brunt of that storm, whereas Sarah Linda Hooker's property really is not. And I can submit that information to the planning board or to you folks if you'd like to see it.
There really is, the idea here is to get the best possible plan in consideration of where the creek is located, where the property lines are located. I have a desire to have some privacy in the back of your house, right? The location of the utilities, try to preserve trees. Then of course deal with the, the potential flooding and take on that risk as the property owner. And make sure that we're not adversely impacting anybody else.
Well, that's our biggest concern.
And also I have the concern that another applicant may come in and say, because we granted this 65-foot variance, how can you say no to us, down the line? So it's not just you and the structure and we'll assume, but we have to also take responsibility for that determination too. And I'm a little, I probably need a little more background in terms of other variances that would resemble this. Does anybody else have a recollection? Have we granted a variance similar to this?
Riser.
Yes.
Okay,
And that was very recent.
okay.
But wasn't that existing, what was, I forget the details on that. It was similar. Right.
It was a tear down and then a completely rebuilt.
And it was a weird lot.
The garage was right on the
Yeah,
edge.
but it was like a really narrow lot, right, in a corner.
What was the number of the variance there, Sean, on the riser property?
I don't know that.
I don't recall whether
This is riser here.
Right. It was like,
they pulled it back from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
They pulled
They
it
actually-
back, I think, from the shore.
I think they pulled it back from the creek.
I'm not sure either.
From what I can tell, they pushed it as far to the north as they could, and they elevated it as much as they could. My recollection is when I checked the distance, it's somewhere like 18 feet or so from the bottom of the bank.
Yeah, they had existing structures there too,
There
if
was an
I'm,
existing structure.
and they were actually closer, so they did some improvements to kind of offset what they were creating at the same time. So.
Yeah, 18 feet, 18.25 feet. I'm looking up the right property. And I believe it was granted in 20.
I mean, I think if we were going to go and do a comparison, we'd have to do a comparison. And I think the reality is we have to go and evaluate this property independently of others, in my opinion. That's just good, they show that there was another property that may have had similar issues, but maybe not all completely the same.
Right.
So I think that, I think we can show that we meet the applicable standards unique to the property, but also there is a law that the board has granted this variance before, so this would be consistent with what you've done in the past.
Also,
I don't think there's been a precedent set
If
with
you
this
wanted
regard.
me
No.
to, obviously we have time to make, time to make a decision, if you wanted me to look into.
Well, I've got some other questions before we're challenged on whether we have
Why don't we go
a
on
precedent
with some other
situation
questions
here.
here?
Right.
John, go ahead.
You made a couple of comments during your presentation
Yes.
that I want to just kind of work into a little bit and just kind of explore. But before I do, I need to ask you a question, Sean.
Yeah.
I know we had talked about increasing the setback from streams, particularly ones that were recognized by DEC.
Yes,
Did we do that?
no, we haven't changed it.
We haven't changed it. So
It's
this
on our
100-foot
list.
requirement has been in existence for some time.
Right, the ordinance is exploring that,
Yeah.
at a later date.
Okay.
It's on our
I just-
radar, but no, nothing has changed.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure about that. So you talked about protecting the adjacent properties, particularly to the north,
Actually to the south.
to the south. The ones to the south would be the Hooker property and the others, or that
Well,
would
actually, it would be.
Let me just get my bearings straight.
Southeast.
So the top of this would be the
Yeah,
north,
right.
correct?
Yes, so
So are you doing anything to protect the properties to the north?
properties to the north, we have a strip here, and this is open land. So what we're doing, if we build the structure in this location, which is where we're proposing to do it, we can deflect the water and it can go this way.
Have you shown that on this current drawing?
I have shown that. And I've also shown.
Can you work through that with us and show us how you have protected the properties to the north?
Sure. In this area here, we've added a note, existing swale and surface grading onto this adjoining parcel for drainage control. Because of the timing of getting the paperwork out.
But you don't actually show that swale on this drawing, do you?
I show this swale coming around this way. And I show this swale coming around this way. So if the creek floods as it does in this direction, it'll be picked up and deflected around the structure and onto the lands of the shotlands and then on the rest of the lake. It's not going down to, there are 3 other properties to the south. It's not directed towards that.
So the water runoff is being directed towards
The shotland property.
this particular property.
Yes.
But at that point, if I'm reading that survey scale, right, the property piece to the east, is that a differing Shetland property?
This is a shotland property. This is-
Different than the one that we're talking about now?
Yes. Yes.
So that water runoff is being forced to that property or around that property also?
The grading around this property is such that the water heads in this direction based on the last view that I had of that property. We didn't extend our drawing over here, but that's how it flows. It flows from high to low over this way around the leach field. I don't know if that answers your question.
So are we pushing the water to the property on the east? Or are we pushing it to a swale that exists between these two properties?
We're deflecting the water so that it follows essentially the grade, but will enhance the grade to control it more so that it doesn't bleed over or flow over onto these 2 properties to the south. This is a conversation that I had with Kevin Mulvaney when he indicated that he felt that was the appropriate way to handle site drainage.
And you're telling me that this drawing indicates that?
I'm saying that this drawing indicates a portion of it with a caveat that.
Caveat, which is a no.
Which is a note that I haven't had a chance to extend that onto their property yet, to show that graphically.
Right.
So
I don't
have-
see it graphically either, but
Right, but I have indicated so by note.
And another comment you made was that you said that this is actually a benefit to the creek. I'd like you to explain that a little bit more to me, how you believe this is a benefit to the creek.
I'm not sure if I said it was a benefit to the creek. It's certainly not a detriment to the creek. It's in agreement with the creek. We're not doing anything to harm the creek. Andrew could probably speak to the vegetation and if what we're doing is beneficial from that perspective. I can't say that what we're doing, well, I suppose under existing conditions, the benefit would be that with this structure in place, we have the ability to control and deflect, whereas under existing conditions, we do not. It's just a free fall or free for all. So I guess if there is a benefit to this project, the benefit is that we have some element of control by virtue of putting the structure there that we don't have under existing conditions. But Andrew could probably speak to the benefit of the creek bank with respect to what he has proposed in terms of plantings.
So I do understand and I do respect the fact that the adjacent property is a shotland property also. I certainly would feel a lot more comfortable if I were to see the drainage more succinctly and showing how it is running off the property, because I don't think that's very clear right now. But that's just my opinion.
Well, I think also, in granting a variance, the variance goes along with the property no matter who owns it. no matter what neighbor owns it,
Right.
owns those properties, so if somebody were to buy the other Shotland property, they'd probably wanna know what's going on there too.
Yeah, and, you know, I think you're right, that is a possibility, and we could cover that, shared situation by way of, deed restriction or private easement amongst 3 properties.
Anything else, John?
Yeah, a comment was made, I thought I heard it, that walls are required where there is no vegetation. And I think you said that. And it seems to me that we're removing all the vegetation. And I know that you're leaving the stumps in place until the vegetation is established. How do we know that those 2 situations are gonna happen concurrently, or that the vegetation is going to establish itself in the same time frame that the stumps are going to die and no longer hold the banks?
I'll leave that up to Andrew if he's still there.
Yep. Still here, guys. So I think it was in some of the ECB comments. Somebody had put an estimate on the stumps. You know, once they're cut, there's about a 10-year shelf life. The root structures and everything about them is still acting in that kind of retaining value. So we're working with that rough 10-year number. And I believe that's more than enough time for the plantings that we've proposed to establish along the creek. I've proposed a number of understory natives like buttonbush and sweetspire, and dogwoods that are naturally suckering, and they send out rhizomes, and they spread. They're spreaders. So I guess to keep it short, I think 10 years is adequate time, more than adequate time for the understory shrubs to establish. In addition to a lot of the things that are already there that are not reflected on plan, but there are some aggressive natives and invasives along the creek bank that are serving the purpose of holding it in place, along with the trees that we're looking at.
Are those going to be removed?
They're going to be. Yep, sorry.
No, the smaller stuff that's there, some of which are invasive, but some are native.
Yeah, right now, the only removals that would take place along the creek bank are the trees that we've specified. They also serve the double, once those trees are out, it serves the double purpose of providing a little bit more light for the things that we're coming back in with. Whereas if we tried to plant some of these understory things in existing conditions, it'd be an uphill battle with both light and kind of normal water conditions. So the removals are opening things up a little bit for us to get new establishment.
So Andrew, can we say that the planting plan that you've come up with and the clearing is going to be beneficial to the health of the creek bank? Is that a statement that we can make?
Yes, the understory shrubs that we're bringing in, I've not identified those on site, so we're bringing in new natives that will enhance the retaining function of the creek, but also general habitat and ecological value, we'll call it. And then that applies more generally to the entire site. As it stands now, there's a very dominant, it's basically a 2-species mix of the black walnut, eastern cottonwoods, and there are a couple of sugar maples interspersed throughout, but for the most part, it's a dominant, the two-species mix, whereas we're coming back in with, 5 or 6 additional natives, and increasing biodiversity just through our planting plan of the entire site.
Would it be fair to add the word eventually when it comes to the development of the creek or improvement?
I think so.
It's not gonna happen right away. I mean,
No, it's when the plants go in, there's an establishment period till they get of mature size, but day one, there would still be that biodiversity. Yeah, day one, and then eventually the benefit increases.
Anyone else with a question?
Just in summary, though, I think, Chip, we really haven't had an answer on how the property was situated here, which was your question, I believe.
I was gonna come back to that.
And I think that an illustration of how property is intended to drain would be helpful. I also heard it stated that DEC recommends natural banks rather than man-made structures. But I hate to open that Pandora's box and say, should we get a DEC recommendation? I think that would be a very egregious request. So,
I can tell you that's accurate because we're dealing across the road.
I know from personal experience that it's
Okay.
They're trying to avoid channeling.
yeah, so I kind of wish those words were never uttered in this room, but I didn't do it. So that's my concern.
Coming back to my question, I think, different orientation, I don't know that that's been looked at as an option, which could reduce the variance needed, won't get rid of it, but could reduce it. But it also would seem to me that in a case of flooding, right now you've got a perpendicular dam there of the house. If you turned it a little bit, you'd have less of a broadside presented to the wind. How much of a difference that would make, I'm not sure.
I think we can get you all the information you requested.
Okay.
I think to your point, I think it would be good to have the building designer, the architect present to give you that information, and I'll certainly forward this comment on to him.
At least give us some explanation.
Sure.
I mean, usually what we run into is somebody wants to put their long axis right up against the creek or the lake or something else. This is a little bit unusual, and
Not a problem, we can get you answers to all your questions.
So are we talking about extending this?
I would think,
Probably.
since we'll need more information, would you be okay with our leaving the public hearing open?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we'd rather answer all your questions and get through the process, not completely force a decision prematurely.
Let me just ask though, anyone in the audience here to comment on this property? Anybody at home want to make a comment now? The hearing will still be open until our July meeting. Somebody's there to make a comment or wants to come back again?
Nobody's waiting.
No. Why?
If you're in agreement, then we'll leave the hearing open. Do we need a vote on that?
Do we need a motion?
Yeah.
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll be on next, we'll be first next time.
Thank you very much.
You're not gonna be here. It'll be me.
Dump that off to you.
Thanks.
Take a little vacation.
He's always on vacation.
I'm retired, there is no vacation.
I know, life is vacation.
Okay, let's go on to the, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go on to the next one.
Nice to meet you.
Chris and Amanda Reynolds, owners of property at 5164 Overlook Lane, requesting a 10.7 foot area variance for rear setback for the installation of a deck.
Good evening, I'm Chris Reynolds, I'm a homeowner at 5164.
Okay. Want to just present what you're requesting and why, and
We're
You forgot your phone.
requesting a 12 by 20-foot deck at the rear of my house. The material we're using is Trex. I mean, that's pretty much the gist of it. I mean, there's not really.
Do you have a drawing, something?
I'm trying to get it.
Driving by there, you're not exactly gonna interrupt neighbors in the back, it doesn't look like.
We have decks
Squirrels
on
and-
each side of us, so.
Irritate the squirrels, right?
Sorry. This actually shows your proposed back on
Mhm. That'd be good, yeah. The rear setback there is supposed to be,
I believe it's 32.
sure, will be 30. Much better drawing. Is there any way you could do it without a variance?
No.
Look like it would.
From what I was told, the biggest I could get was 2 feet without a variance, so.
Even if you brought it over towards the lower side there, it still would be restricted. Anyone have any questions? Comments?
What's to the west of the property?
That is all federal wetland. And we
They're
wouldn't
pretty
be
high.
encroaching on that anyway.
Right? Are you looking for that, Shauna?
I'm trying to get on for it.
Ah, okay.
I don't know where it comes from.
Interesting the way the line comes in and out again.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, isn't
You might not need the variance if it didn't come in.
it? Yeah, right?
Last lot in development, so.
Really,
Yeah, I mean, that's unique in itself, just the shape of the parcel, you know?
We're at 10.7, it's a
10.7.
30 foot.
Looks like that house that's showing up there just to the south, looks like they're pretty close to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And the one to the north is, yeah, well,
yeah, and they have each of those houses have a deck.
I don't know the exact dimensions of their deck, but I believe it's bigger than the one that we're looking to install.
I just don't remember variance for that one. And we've done variances down the hill
Just the-
further, a couple on a
The
couple.
fence.
Yeah. Well, the
Just the
variance
fence.
for a deck, I know,
Oh,
that's,
right.
yeah, the road as you go in off of Buffalo Street.
Yeah, you would think the pool and all the other stuff on that.
We've done, I think, over.
Over there.
Oh my God. Any other questions? Do you have any further information you'd like to provide? All of them?
That's about it.
Anyone here in the audience or at home here for this variance hearing? Hearing none, I will close the hearing.
Next.
Our custom is to vote the same night. We do have 62 days to make a decision, but I anticipate we'll get your parents tonight. You're welcome to stay around for deliberations. If you want to not wait around, you can call Shauna tomorrow.
I'll give you guys a call tomorrow. Sounds good. Thank you for your time, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. And last one. Venezia and Associates representing Three Guys Properties at 5275.
I think that's the
I
attorney's
think the
phone.
attorney.
I tried to yell at her when she was leaving, but I didn't wanna.
She'll come back.
I figured she'd turn around, you
It's not
know?
gonna take long.
Yeah, she'll be back.
She's back in less than 10 minutes.
Call her. Fair Street Extension, owner of property at 5275. Fair Street Extension requesting a 66.5 foot area variance from the side property line. Anthony?
Yes, just have Shauna pull up the
Yep,
subdivision map.
Yep.
So currently, right now, there's the home is on it, it's closer to Parish Street Extension than the barn. There's an existing barn there, a large equine center that is used to store trained horses. The plan is to separate the home and the existing septic system that services the home from the large parcel, and create the home on its own, just under 2 acre parcel. The goal here is to incorporate the home and the septic system on that piece. So that's what's pushing that piece south and encroaching within the 100-foot setback. In the SCR1, there is a 100-foot buffer from any building that stores horses. There's a couple other things in that category, but the horses is what we fall under. So that creates that we have a 33.5-foot setback when we need 100 feet. That's pretty much it. Like I said, the reason for it is it's a financial decision to pull the house off of the main parcel. It creates a more favorable position for the owners to refinance and things of that nature to make some financial movements. But we didn't want to get into not incorporating the septic system with the home. Since it is the septic system, we don't want to have to do some sort of easement or things of that nature. It makes it a cleaner lot that incorporates the septic and some fencing in the shed that's already there.
How many feet is it to the septic system?
It's probably about 65 to 70 approximately.
I didn't agree with you.
About 65 to 70 to the septic roughly. And we're going off of as-built, so, or the design and what we can find in the field.
Certainly not an issue that we too close to the house.
Right, and the homeowner is, everybody, it's gonna stay in the same names, it's gonna operate business as usual, nothing's changing. It's just like I said, it's, for financial purposes, it's beneficial to the owner to make this subdivision movement.
What I thought I heard you say was there's a particular ordinance that says barns
So in
and
the
animals
yes,
can't be within 100 feet of another structure.
horses can't be within 100, structure bearing horses can't be within 100 feet of a property.
Does it go for cattle as well?
No, cattle's
Pigs and
different.
chicken. Pigs and chickens are 200. I think cows and horses and things of that nature are 100. I guess one is more messy than the other, I guess. But like I said, it's operating business as usual. Nothing's changing in that regards. So it is in an ag district of things. It is, an ag use. None of the operations are changing.
Yeah, I was looking at, it says that one is a farm parcel or something, right? Is there some farming or something? I thought that I read that.
it's- The horses are breeding
They're
and raising
considered,
horses,
yeah.
so that's the farms, is the raising of.
It's a boarding and training operation for horses,
Okay.
lessons.
You won't change any of the beautiful fencing.
That's the parcel, right?
Anyone think of any problem we might get into down the road with it?
Well, the variance stays with the property. If it's sold, then what does the next owner run into if he decides to put horses in the barn? Or if the variance been granted?
Yeah, we shouldn't run into a problem.
Well, maybe the code is there for a reason also.
Right. Well, I did see in there, it said that, like, if we decided for it, like, it would have to be kind of signed off that there were not gonna be any animals stored in the barn or something like that. So I would assume that goes with the property, right?
Which barn?
Let,
You mean on the home parcel?
yeah, I guess,
Yes,
so.
okay, yeah. No animals will be stored on site on the smaller parcel, just the larger parcel. Because it is under the 5 acre threshold.
Yeah, so if they sell it, they can't, yeah.
Well, I think the reality is that in the future, if someone were to sell the house, they're quite a ways away from the barn, and they'd be buying it with full knowledge that the barn is there. So,
I was just trying to think of where.
yeah, and, you know, if down the road they do something else with the property, chances are the barn comes down and they don't store horses then.
Any other questions from the board?
Those are my comments, I saw, so.
Any questions from, do we have anybody left at home or not? Or in the,
No, we have Chris. Yeah. Oh, sure.
Check.
the audience or represented?
Why didn't Andrew quit?
Probably 'cause it's not your-
Straightforward and,
Nothing more from.
Saving the town some money.
Is Chris still here? Still on?
no.
Anthony, anything else you want to add?
I don't think so, no.
Be comfortable with us closing the public hearing?
Yeah.
Well, again, we will likely make a decision tonight. We do have 62 days if we run into any problems.
We'll sit here and wait with you.
You're welcome to, and actually, since you're waiting, you're the only ones here, so we'll do yours first.
Let's go first.
Yeah. Okay. Comments on the first one?
The first one meeting,
Well,
You mean the second one?
You guys.
the three guys, the first one will do
No.
first.
Or the, okay, that works.
I think everybody else.
Yeah, nobody else, yeah.
Well, we only have one other closed one.
I don't see the issue.
we're talking about 3 guys now?
Yeah. You guys have any concerns?
I don't have any questions.
Me either.
Will do. Applicant is requesting area variance side setback of 33.5 feet when 100 feet is the minimum, 66.5 foot side setback variance required. Shall the applicant be granted a 66.5 side setback area variance? John Casey,
Yes.
Bob Hilliard.
Yes.
Dave Emery,
Yes.
Ellie LaVoy,
Yes.
Chip Saylor.
Yes. Okay. The benefit to the applicant is outweighs the detriment to the neighborhood. I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me. To be as presented on the plans as of today. Think.
Fine.
There really is no change in the neighborhood by making this subdivision. I think they showed why they can't do it in other ways. self-created.
Yeah, there's no real impact, I don't think.
I think the key thing about this is it really doesn't change the parcels or the neighborhood.
You mentioned the same owner of both lots.
Right. So same owner of both lots.
You can mention the structures are, looks like they're well over 100 feet from one another.
Yeah, the house particularly is
And
several
wasn't,
hundred feet.
wasn't the septic system part of the,
Yeah.
why this was necessary?
And I believe that Chris's comment about the barn usage was said to be in writing, Chris Johnson. So we could add that in the notes that, just to be, no animals stored.
Anything else?
Nah, I don't think so.
It would be our usual conditions that were as presented, and then be done within the year. It'll take longer to change your mind.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It will be
No.
done in the year.
Done in your, thank you.
Okay, all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
You too.
The other one is that we have, a petition on is Chris and Amanda Reynolds, the setback on Overlook Lane, 10.7 foot area variance for installation of the deck.
I think that one's a no-brainer.
Once we had the overhead, it was so obvious that
Yeah.
it was the one house with something missing. Everybody
Yeah.
else had already
They're the
taken
only
care of
It
ones.
business.
still might have taken a little bit of a thing, but
Right,
you look at the woods and how close it
Yeah.
is.
Yes.
Well, and the thing is, his lot is kind of misshapen. It's not even, if
Oh,
it
yeah.
was a normal lot, he wouldn't even have to come to us
now
for a
he's
variance.
more in character with the neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Ironically, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Call the question.
He wanted to be like everybody else.
Applicant is requesting area variance rear setback of 19.3 feet and 30 feet is the minimum. 10.7 foot rear setback variance required. Shall the applicant be granted a 10.7 foot rear setback area variance? John Casey,
Yes.
Bob Hilliard,
Yes,
Dave Emery,
Yes.
Kelly LaVoy,
Yes.
Chip Saylor.
Yes. Okay. The benefit to the applicant outweighs the detriment to the neighborhood. I think
It isn't the character of the neighborhood.
it isn't the
Oh,
character of the neighborhood. The way the lot line, I guess the irregularity of the lot line makes the area variance more than it might be otherwise.
I think the fact that it's federal wetland behind.
Right.
Yeah, there's no encroaching on the property behind you. Nobody's building that.
It's not a significant variance, really.
No. He didn't really have
It
much
won't
room.
change the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah. I think it's pretty unique in itself. I think.
Anything else? Nope, pretty straightforward.
No, I'm just upset that you're leaving next month and dropping that in my lap.
Dump that one on you.
Yeah.
Well, we want to
May I
discuss
ask you questions before we move on to,
on this one?
no,
Okay. Yes.
what happened to Doug's interpretation?
Oh, yeah.
It was withdrawn officially.
Was it? Okay.
And is that because we are considering alternative ordinance on that?
That is not.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was the Shotland property.
Yeah,
Is it okay for us to talk about that?
I think we,
Are you
no,
we haven't finished this yet.
Oh, haven't finished that one yet?
No,
Not yet.
well, you want the
So I apologize.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the other two conditions.
Other two conditions.
So,
Okay, then we're
I
good.
don't know.
for information, provided today, and also.
Okay, I just wanted to
Sorry,
say
yeah.
those two conditions.
So is it okay to talk about that Shotland property in that we're not in public session?
well, we're still in public session, right?
No.
In the,
You did not You have
We
not
continued it.
closed
We
the public
continued that.
hearing.
Yeah,
But by
It's okay for
continuing
me to
it
ask you
until the
a
next
question?
meeting, or,
I think
Oh.
you can still have discussion
okay,
okay,
they
yeah,
could have stayed.
because it's open.
right,
They could have.
that's true,
You did tell them that.
right. And they can live anyway, right? Yeah.
So, I don't know if it would help anyone else, but I'd almost like to review the riser property to see whether we were influenced by the fact that they built a retaining wall there along the creek.
I don't think they built one, I think there was one there.
Yeah,
I'd still like to know
Oh, yeah, no.
whether there is one there.
Right.
I do recall that they did move the existing house that was on there. It was kind of like a really weird lot, like either way, they were SOL. It was already a non-conforming issue, right? But I believe that they actually moved the house away from either, it was the creek and the lake. They did something to make it more palatable for,
Well, I'm just concerned,
right,
I'd like to know in my own mind whether the riser property has a retaining wall there.
I don't think it does, but
I
personally.
will pull the minutes and
Yeah.
the action and get it to the board.
That would be
Is it possible to show a plan of that?
I
property?
need to find it. I quickly looked for it. It looks like it's already been put in laser beach.
Okay.
So I can't, I need time to pull.
Yeah, it's been a few years.
Sure.
I'm glad you brought that up, John, because I really wasn't prepared to vote on this. I
Yeah,
didn't feel
me
like I had enough information. I wanted an answer for your flow because it wasn't illustrated how this was gonna work. And so I had questions in my mind.
There is on one
The
side or
his-
the other,
Yeah, the history precedent thing, it's still, people are gonna use it as a, as a wedge if we're not careful.
Right.
And it may not be precedent setting, we say all these are individual, but you know how it goes. People make a case based on what we've done in the past. So I think looking at the riser thing more carefully
Yeah.
certainly makes sense.
Well, I was a little bit taken aback when she threw that out there,
Right.
right? That there were, she didn't say it in so many
Yeah,
words, but she said it.
she
that
basically said law has been
Yeah.
made.
The precedent's been set. I'm not sure the precedent has been
And
set.
the other thing
I disagree with that
that
too.
burns with me is, I don't know if I can just take their word on the environmental, because they made a case and they sold it, but I wasn't buying.
Unfortunately, though, that's not,
Not our,
that's
my-
not
Right.
ours, other than we could condition
Well,
our variance
okay.
on, yeah.
Okay,
right,
But Chip, they're asking for us to consider a variance relative to the setback to the creek. And when they created this setback, or,
Right.
this ordinance, it was to protect the properties, all of them, right? The creek, the surrounding neighbors, everyone, right? So I'm kind of where Bob is, that I'm not sure they're doing anything to maintain
or improve.
that safety feature versus maybe impacting it a little bit to the negative because they're taking out all these trees.
And that's a lot of, so that whole area in there is kind of wet a little bit, like it's.
It's a flood area right now.
Right, so because I walk by there all the time and, yeah, there's a lot of vegetation in there that filters.
Well, that's what
that.
I wanted to clarify. I mean, yeah, I call it underbrush, but
Right, well, it
it's
is,
just
but it's a filter.
packed with underbrush all
Yeah.
along the street, creek there, and you can't tell that from their plantings,
right.
because all they've got is they're gonna cut
Well,
the
and they're
trees.
displacing
See, my-
soil and.
And I understand our jurisdiction, but I also understand we can make referrals, or we can make
Right.
conditions. And this thing, it's not just, will there be a flood? There will be a flood.
Right.
And everybody knows it. And the things the variables like ice jams, all you need is one big tree. There are so many variables. You're going to have floods without a doubt. And that you wonder if the vulnerability, when, okay, they're going to leave stumps in and that's going to be okay. And then we're going to wait until these other things grow. And for me, I just don't quite understand that. I understand our jurisdiction, but I think it was kind of a loose end, and if we have to make a referral or register a concern, I would be on board with that.
I think it's still a concern in my mind. We don't know that the new vegetation is going to do as good a job retaining the bank as the existing vegetation.
Well, and you brought up a good, so I didn't really understand that they were having it flow to the north. Which I was like, when you said that, I mean, I was listening to him, but I wasn't really following when you were saying you haven't drawn this part. I mean, I was kind of confused by that as well. I don't understand how you could reroute that much water without, and like put it right between your neighbors. You know,
It's
I mean, like.
still- This is,
Right,
this is not just your normal stream, that's
No.
the problem.
Right.
I mean, I have a little stream that runs behind,
Well, they have
you
a
know,
waterfall
through my
across the
farm.
street, so.
That could be
you
the
know.
Black River
Yeah.
in March.
Yeah, right.
And Mendith Creek, I mean, if you remember Agnes, and if you remember the one that he was talking about,
Oh, yeah.
this
that
is a
one was
rip
bad.
roar.
Yeah.
And it's not like your normal, I mean, that's the problem with the code. You can have a stream like the one that goes by the Danny Wegmans, or you can have a river, which Mendith Creek can be.
And it's not even about a storm, because
Just
in the spring,
Yeah.
when the snow melts,
Right,
you've got something, I mean, I'm just, we're sitting here and he's saying, well, this won't be a problem with this and that. It has to be written down someplace, somebody has to be on top of this, but
Yeah.
I know Kevin Mulvaney, when he talks about this stuff, he's saying,
He's very
avoid,
passionate.
yes,
Yeah.
and avoid this and don't
Right.
be part of the problem,
Right.
he's saying to people like us.
yeah.
And I got that message when I was alert on the day of the training, and which was remarkable. And and he said,
Remarkable that you're
he said,
awake.
all of us are custodians of the environment. We all are, and we have to do our share.
Well,
So-
and there's a difference too. I mean, if they want to compare the, what is it, riser property? I mean, like, that, there was a house there. This has nothing, right? I mean, this is just vegetation. This is not,
Yeah.
these people lived there. They couldn't do anything. They had no garage. They had no, I mean, they really needed to do something. I mean.
The risers didn't remove as much vegetation.
Right,
Yeah.
and there was, like I said, there was a house already there, I mean, they tried to improve upon the situation that was already bad. Whereas
They
right now, it's
also-
not bad.
They have a plan, they want to build another house.
Well, and
I was
for
looking at
what,
that, I'm sure
to
they
rent
are.
or sell, or, I mean,
Well,
not
they
none of my
built this
business,
house,
but,
they also are planning on building a fourth
Yeah.
house.
I mean, it looks beautiful down there, but-
I mean, that's down the road.
That's a really narrow property.
right,
Sure is.
Yes, but they
They're
would
gonna
like
all
to
share
build
that
there.
water,
right.
Everybody gets that water. They just don't-
It's a big family.
Yeah, are they
Everybody.
gonna give lake
Raw
access to, I mean, how, like, are they doing like a very mini,
Maybe a
like,
rip roar.
And,
development?
and it-
Well, it's for their family.
Okay.
and Chip's right, the crux of it, do you have to have the house in that shape? Does it have to be exactly like that?
How big is the
And he
house,
did a
too?
humma,
Yeah.
and that's not,
Which makes me think they didn't even think about that.
yeah. So they weren't.
That's why I
really-
brought it up.
But I didn't even,
Sure.
About the minimizing the variance?
Well,
Yeah.
You're talking about?
well, he has the shape of the house, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you
It's
can
a pretty
minimize just
substantial
by,
house,
or
right?
rotating it a little bit.
Rotating.
Yeah.
yeah, the lot itself is just already,
But I
Well,
mean,
but didn't they subdivide, so I vaguely
Yeah.
remember them coming in and wanting to do all these things, and we were kind of trying to be careful because we knew that they were gonna
So they
kind
have
of do
another
this,
property.
but
So they have this,
we're not trying to create too many
they
issues, right?
have this house, which they tore down and rebuilt
Right,
this one.
they wanted an outdoor kitchen at one time too, I believe,
They own this one, they wanna build here.
right? Okay, I see,
Or
yeah,
here, but I'm not thinking, I don't think they're gonna have any room here. I think they wanna put another house here, which is where he was talking about.
Yeah, that whole drainage thing has to be clarified.
yeah,
I don't think they
so
were ready
too.
for prime time, because we didn't ask anything that was difficult. You said, I can't figure out from your drawing what you
Yeah.
have. You asked the obvious, does it have to be this shape? And
Or in that
or-
spot,
and
They
Those were-
weren't,
those-
they
those were
were
obvious
willing to
questions.
continue it.
yeah, right,
Actually, the ECP suggested resizing, repositioning.
yeah, right,
Right.
I
So it
mean,
was in those notes.
Yeah.
So
I was
this
trying to
will go
read the
planning
notes while
board.
they were.
This will come back to you in July.
No, it'll come to me,
Planning
That's right.
jerk.
board.
And you guys are here, obviously. I'm just gonna defer to you guys the whole time.
So are you gonna distribute the riser
I
plan?
will find riser
Just put it up on the website
history
there.
and minutes. That would probably be very helpful. Just let me dig around and see what I can.
Yeah, that would, I remember it, but I mean, their story was much different. And Sarah Linda came and was really upset because she was worried it was gonna, disturb her, like the water overflow. I was actually quite surprised myself, so, all
Okay, board business,
right.
any requests for rehearing? No. Referrals from town manager,
No, that was withdrawn.
okay. Should we get it off the agenda for next time? Or is that a standing agenda item?
Off the agenda.
What do you got?
Yeah, down here, referrals from town manager.
Oh,
Does that appear every month?
I think it does.
I'm not sure it does.
No, okay. Maybe it's-
Yeah, we could take that off. I don't think Doug really wants to come here anymore.
I think we should force him, just.
Force? Ordinance committee
We'll
referrals?
take that off of.
He isn't working enough, I can tell him he's gonna attend the
Okay, the
meetings.
ordinance. Under other business as required, we should delete the,
We'll take
Vice chair.
vice chair off.
I mean,
Removing me already,
It's
wow,
not an
it's
issue
such a great.
anymore.
Sure it is.
should we wait until after the meeting next month?
Yeah, right.
Nice.
Might be an opening. I ran one
We
so
have
far.
the,
Did we vote on that?
I don't know, did you?
I believe we did.
Oh, yeah, you did, you did.
You did, and then Kelly had to wait and decide.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, actually, I waited and decided, then they voted on it, I think is how it,
We're good, yeah, I think you're all set.
yeah.
okay,
You have to approve the minutes.
yes.
tonight.
Approval of the
I
May
didn't look
17th minutes?
I have a little tiny note on that, when I looked at them, I'm listed as a member, not as an alternate.
Okay, oh, okay.
I will change it.
Well, next month.
Oh, that's
There you
right.
go.
That's right.
Acting alternate, or you'll be
It's official.
Yeah.
active alternate. Okay, review of next month's, wait a minute, we have to have a vote on the
On the
minutes.
minutes with the change.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna need your cheat sheet too. I'll have to look, Sabrina. I have an
Yeah.
extra. Email it. Not getting off that easy.
My computer's up at
Yeah.
Best Buy tonight, so.
Oh, is it? Are you going to buy one or?
No. Long story.
Uh,
Next month's agenda.
Well, Shotlands will be on there. And Artisan Meats is coming in for their expansion. So we'll
Oh,
have
okay.
at least 2 variances, one per side, rear and one per side.
Where are they? They're going out the,
They're going up
uh-huh,
and back
up and back.
and over. They're expanding.
Artisan.
Yeah, they've got
Artisan
the
Meats.
railroad track right there, right? Aren't the tracks really close over there, if I remember? Or
They aren't that close to the,
No?
not to Artisan, no.
What am I thinking of?
They're changing, so they wanna reconfigure the front for truck traffic, because right now the trucks come in off of Brickyard.
Oh,
They wanted to go higher, but FAA has some restrictions there because of the airport. But they just can't keep up, so they need more space.
gotcha.
Wow.
Oh, I know, I was
Good for
thinking of
them.
something else. I was thinking of something else.
That's all we have
That's it for now.
for now, yeah.
Let's keep it
Now, if
nice
somebody was
and light.
walking in and never been to one of our meetings, you can't tell the players without a scorecard. The people out there wear shorts and we don't. And that's one of the things I noticed.
I was thinking about
Unless
wearing
somebody
shorts.
in this group changes that.
Well,
we have a dress code.
We have a dress code.
Dave gave me grief, I had jeans on one night, he was like,
If you don't mind, I'm gonna get out of here and try to catch the end of my daughter's phone.
oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
What's your
A motion
plan?
for adjournment?
I move to
What's
adjourn.
that?
Yep.
All in favor?
Oh, all in favor, yes, I. I'm in favor.
Yeah, somewhere I've got.
Okay, and I probably